step into an industry traditionally dominated by the Japanese, the console business. They designed and built their very own hardware from scratch. They innovated with new technology and services, and in the process went from green newcomers to legitimate and respected players. Here is our top 10 Xbox facts. Windows CE was a stripped-down version of the Windows operating system, designed especially for early smart devices that had limited specifications. It allowed Microsoft to expand the reach of their software beyond the standard PC into a multitude of new products that use computer technology. Founder and then CEO Bill Gates saw that the space in the living room was being dominated by cable TV and satellite boxes. They were bringing hours of entertainment programming into homes, and Microsoft had no part of it. Initially, Gates proposed to TCI, which was then the USA's largest cable company, that they partner so Windows would be the OS inside their new cable boxes. But TCI chairman John Malone was reluctant to, as he feared Microsoft could dictate licensing costs and technology decisions. He was worried that Gates wanted the cable industry to give away too much of the future. So he made a deal with Sun Microsystems. Added to this was the threat that the PlayStation presented to their core business. Games were a massive part of the computer industry. Only one of the top 30 games sold in the USA was on PC. The rest were on consoles, specifically the PlayStation. Gates couldn't stand idle and allow a move away from Windows-centric devices. So Microsoft bought WebTV, a company which produced a compact unit that connected to the TV and allowed internet browsing and email. Gates said of the acquisition, "It underscores our strategy of delivering to consumers the benefits of the internet, together with emerging forms of digital broadcasting." But there was a desire by the WebTV team to iterate on the unit design so it could run Windows CE and play games that could compete with consoles. However, there was also another division working on a similar project that was to become the Xbox. Its design was a collaboration of many hands, but if one person can be labelled father of the Xbox, then it's Seamus Blackley.
Well, I was actually the guy who wrote the first Xbox memo, so I've been on the Xbox team longer than anyone else.
He'd previously created Flight Unlimited, a game for PC, and was now a graphics program manager at Microsoft. He was asked by his supervisor Jay Torberg to write an analysis of the graphics of the newly announced PlayStation 2 compared with their PC DirectX technology.
So, one night, for whatever reason, I was sitting on an airplane and I got hit by cosmic radiation, and I wrote this thing up and I took it to my friend Kevin at like 2 a.m. after I landed. I called him up at home. He's like, I said, we gotta make a game console.
This grew into a project to design a brand new Microsoft console that was informally referred to as the Windows Entertainment Platform. The early plan was for it to play PC games as well as its own Xbox titles, for it to run Windows CE and have the prospect of using Internet Explorer and MS Office. When Blackley revealed that the Xbox would have to drop Windows support to operate faster, he said he thought Bill Gates would strangle him in anger. You see, Gates' hope for the Xbox was for it to be a Trojan Horse, a device that's true purpose would be de-emphasized to attract early adopter gamers. He saw the need to launch and promote it as a games console, but he wanted it to bring the Windows OS to the TV so it could gain a foothold in the living room. WebTV was abandoned, but Bill's original vision of a console that runs a version of Windows, Internet Explorer, and has TV services lives on today in the Xbox One.
Xbox, go to Dead Rising 3.
The original Xbox was launched as a dedicated games console. It was a critical success, praised for its superior graphics and highly lauded for its unique games. Early versions of Windows were slow in running multimedia. In part, this was due to developers having to take account of so many different PC hardware configurations. Alex St. John, Craig Eisler, and Eric Enstrom were programmers at Microsoft who were given the nickname the Beastie Boys because of their large size and their mischievous behavior. Together, they created DirectX, which is a suite of APIs, application programming interfaces. DirectX was designed to make it easier to create multimedia and game software for the PC by allowing developers to program its APIs in a standard and easier way. The APIs would then take care of the heavy lifting by automatically using system resources that optimize the unique hardware of any PC. It was this DirectX technology that was used as the foundation of the early Microsoft console concept, which was informally referred to as the DirectX box, which was shortened to Xbox. The Microsoft marketing team were not keen on Xbox and created a long list of alternatives. These included AIO, short for All-in-One, the MOX, Microsoft Optimal Experience, and IS1, Interactive System in One, which they submitted to focus testing. However, the name Xbox was preferred by the vast majority of testers, perhaps because the letter X represents the unknown or something mysterious and exciting. But marketing listened, and the Xbox name was cemented, later becoming Microsoft's best-known entertainment brand. Industrial designer Horace Luke was a former Nike employee and had worked as a contractor for Microsoft on mice and joysticks for their hardware division. His experience designing jeans and brand work for the X Games alternative sports competition gave him a cool edge, so he was chosen to create the outside of the Xbox. Inspired industrial design is more than just being a case to hold various components. There is a design philosophy behind it, which is used to visually communicate a message. Luke said, "I designed the esprit of the business. When you purchase that console and you put it on your living room floor, it should represent every brand value that Xbox brings to the picture."
Foam was something that we absolutely wanted to communicate the core brand value and the brand promise that we have to the customer, which is an ultimate gaming experience. And how do you communicate that through form on the outside?
He wanted to encapsulate the essence of what the Xbox was all about, which he deemed to be a sense of power, advanced technology, innovation, and immediacy. So to research these elements, he visited the homes of gamers to make observations, which he used as feedback. He saw that people would rest cans of Coke on the top of their consoles, which he regarded as potentially dangerous if they were spilt into the vents. So he made sure to move the vents from the top of his Xbox designs to the side. When sketching his first 4 concepts, Luke only had a green marker with him, so his initial designs were all in green, and the colour stuck.
I always carry a marker with me, and I happened to have a green marker in my pocket on the day that I was sketching, and I didn't have any other colors. Even my boss came in and said, "Horace, you gotta see more than just green. You can't just sketch everything in green." Next thing you know, we took it to game developers, showed them controllers, showed them box and these sketches that I had, and next thing you know, Xbox became green.
Horace also gave a more inspiring explanation. He said, "Green is the signature color of technology. Look at the greens of the early monochrome Apple computers. Think of witches stirring a pot of something secret, or the blood of aliens in the movies." He created a wall full of sketches, going on to create over 100 different designs. And he made several 3D models out of foam. The final design has a green orb on the top, which was added to represent the unlimited power of nuclear energy. Sony had publicly announced that their new PlayStation 2 console would be released in North America in October of 2000. Bill Gates could have pushed his team so that the Xbox was released before it and get the first to market advantage. However, he didn't want to make a similar product. He wanted the Xbox to be significantly more powerful. He said, "We aren't aiming for a parity product. I want to see a difference between Xbox and every other console."
It provides performance better than twice that of any previous platform.
The team were pushed, and at the time of the Xbox release, it was the most powerful console ever. It featured a 32-bit Intel Pentium 3 Coppermine-based core processor running at 733 MHz. It could boot up from flash ROM for a fast startup time. A powerful NVIDIA NV2A graphics processing unit and chipset for 3D graphics with higher polygon counts and better effects. An Ethernet port for faster internet speeds. an internal power supply, so the console had one clean cable to the power source, 64 meg of DDR RAM, twice that of PS2's 32 meg, an 8GB formatted hard drive, which could be used to store additional content, a bold decision as it added to the unit cost, but it would be a key differentiator against the PS2 and GameCube, a DVD drive, Dolby Digital Live 5.1 for games, and DTS Surround for DVD movies. Additionally, you could buy a movie playback kit. Although the Xbox had a DVD drive built in, it couldn't play DVD movies as Microsoft wanted to save costs by cutting out licensing fees. The kit enabled movie playback, it had an IR blaster and a remote. Additionally, if you used the HD AV pack, the Xbox could output graphics at 16:9 aspect ratio, or 720p or 1080i resolution. Although support was limited to a handful of games, it provided many with their first taste of HD gaming. During the design process of the Xbox console, Microsoft looked to multiple third-party manufacturers to make the graphics card. In 1995, Silicon Graphics had gained tremendous respect for creating the graphics for Steven Spielberg movie Jurassic Park. Some engineers who left formed their own 3D technology companies, Geiger Pixel and 3DFX. Geiger Pixel 3D was already being considered by Microsoft's Web TV team, and there was 3DFX Interactive that had become a rising star because their Voodoo 3D graphics chipsets for PC were becoming popular with PC gamers. Canadian company ATI Technologies were working on a chip called the R200, an early Radeon chip, and Nvidia, which was gaining respect for the pace of its 3D chip innovations, and GeForce 256. All pitched to Microsoft, who narrowed their options down to two companies, Geiger Pixel and Nvidia, but Microsoft were receiving advice from unusual areas. Tim Sweeney, a founder and respected 3D programmer from Epic Games, who'd previously given a talk on game technology in front of Bill Gates. He warned Microsoft executives that the Nvidia chip would be more powerful. Geiger Pixel believed they would get the contract, especially as Microsoft invested $10 million in them. But Microsoft had to take account that Geiger Pixel had no track record with chip production, whereas Nvidia had a proven business of making and selling chips. Microsoft went with Nvidia, giving the Xbox a graphical advantage over the PS2. The move helped familiarize Nvidia drivers and technology to developers of Xbox and PC games, and Nvidia are now the market leader of consumer 3D graphics technology. The Xbox case designer Horace Luke was also tasked with coming up with creating the game controller. He produced multiple designs, which he amended based on user feedback. His case study observations of gamers revealed they were keeping their consoles on the floor because their controller cables were too short. So he made the decision to include long 9-foot, 2.74 meter cables. He added safety dongles which would separate from the Xbox if anybody tripped over them, protecting the console from being dragged with them. Each controller also had 2 memory card slots, which would allow the backup of game saves and settings. So gamers who took their controller or their memory card to a friend's house would always have their save game file or profile settings with them. Microsoft field tested their early controller designs with a target group of 16 to 24 gamers from the USA. The feedback from them led to Luke adjusting his design to fit bigger hands, so he made the controller bigger.
We actually had users in the lab in which we give it to them, they touch it, they go, oh no, this is not high enough, or this is getting in the way. So I or somebody else would go down to the shop, shave it off with a piece of sandpaper, come back and say, what do you think about this now? And then they're saying, yeah, that's feeling better, but now this is cutting my hand. So you bring it back again. So there's a lot of back and forth process in which it's almost like a bar of soap, right? In lots of ways. It's the more you shape it, the more comfortable it gets.
The final design was simply called the Xbox controller. But when released, it was heavily criticized for its large size, which made it unwieldy. Game Informer magazine gave it the Blunder of the Year award, and IGN editor Craig Harris called it the second worst video game controller of all time. It was given the derisory nickname Fatty. Although a decade later, Microsoft resurrected its little-known official nickname, the Duke. Pre-release feedback in Japan revealed that the testers there hated its size too. It would be disastrous to release the Fatty there. So industrial designer Alan Hand came up with a new design, the Controller S, codename Akibono, perhaps in tribute to sumo wrestler Akibono Taro. It was more compact and the black and white button were moved below the lettered buttons. The start and back button were moved westwards underneath the left thumbstick. Microsoft later replaced the Fatty in the West, making the Controller S the standard box model. After its release, many Xbox owners reported being much happier with the fit. What is it they say about men with small hands?
Oh.
For the Xbox to sell, it needed games. To get games on the system, it needed developers. The way Microsoft was able to attract them was with the promise that the Xbox would be easy to program. Parallel processing in consoles gave the ability to have multiple tasks running simultaneously for more efficient use of hardware. However, its non-user-friendly implementation in consoles like the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation 2 meant there was a steep learning curve. Microsoft built the Xbox to have a more traditional PC-like architecture, with a focus on the CPU and graphics processor, so developers were already familiar with it.
The model for software developers is very rich. The ability to actually achieve the theoretical performance and use tools that they're used to is very straightforward.
At GameStop 2001, on the Microsoft stage, Lorne Lanning, co-creator of Oddworld, said, "The Xbox is allowing us to do what we've always wanted to do. This is a sense of the world we've always been after and wanted to create." James J. Allard's first role at Microsoft was as a network programmer. Back in 1993, he wanted to test TCP/IP networking procedures. So as an unauthorized side project, he built Microsoft's first ever internet server and claimed the Microsoft.com domain name. He wrote a company memo titled "Windows, the next killer application for the internet," and he can be credited with making Bill Gates understand the importance of the internet to Microsoft's business. J. Allard was a visionary, and when he moved into the Xbox division, he saw that the internet would play a big role in the future of gaming and that the Xbox should support it. He said, "We wanted to bring games to the next level. If you could download new levels to a game, you could bring an episodic experience, almost like TV." When the standard for home internet use was 56K dial-up, he pushed so that the Xbox should not support it, for it would diminish the online experience if some players had a slower connection. It would also add to unit cost. He just wanted an Ethernet port so that anybody who did go online had a fast connection, with the added benefit that it would also push gamers to adopt broadband.
We're really focusing hardcore on building an online experience for Xbox around games, around stuff that you can only do in games that are connected, right? It's really interesting. You can talk about community and you can talk about massively multiplayer games. You can imagine episodic games in which you get a new level every week. You can talk about downloadable stuff.
1 year after the Xbox was released in the USA, Live was launched with the Xbox Live Starter Kit. It cost $49.99 and included a voice chat headset and a 1-year subscription to the service. It allowed Xbox owners to play games with other people from all across the world and obtain additional downloadable content. Whilst not the first, it established a modern paradigm for home console gaming. When Microsoft were developing the Xbox, they weren't just hoping to release a console, they hoped to completely dominate the market. Ted Hasse was in charge of Windows game developer relations. He observed that many developers had stopped making games for Windows and were now making titles for the PS1. He wanted to stop them moving on to the PS2 by attracting them back to Microsoft. He said, "The PS2 was a huge motivator." Bill Gates was concerned that the PlayStation 2 would attract all the hardcore gamers. He saw it as a threat to Windows. He said, "Our goals need to be to contain Sony." The Xbox executive team created a 5-year roadmap for their console called Purposes and Principles. One of their key goals was for the Xbox to beat the PS2 to become the #1 games console. They wrote, "Being a good number 2 is not acceptable. So strong was the competitive emotion that the Xbox team held a competition to kill the PS2. They would use a heavy caliber automatic weapon to shoot Sony hardware. Seamus Blackley and Kevin Backus referred to the early Xbox development project as Project Midway. It had a double meaning. The first was that it was representative of hardware that was partway between a PC and games console. The other meaning was more distasteful. It referred to the battle between the USA and the Japanese in the Pacific following the events of Pearl Harbor. In effect, it likened the business to sell games consoles between Microsoft and Sony as a war between US and Japanese nations. Journalist and Microsoft confidant Dean Takahashi described the name as politically incorrect. When the Xbox was released in North America, it was heavily advertised and promoted by Microsoft. It had none of the supply constraints that plagued Sony with their PS2. After 3 months, the Xbox had sold over 1.53 million units, outperforming 3-month sales of all other modern consoles, including the Wii. After Microsoft had stopped production of the console, they announced in 2006 that it had sold a total of 24 million units. That's 16 million units sold in North America, 6 million in the UK and Europe, and just 2 million units sold in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. The numbers showed that the Xbox had resonated most with gamers in its homeland. Microsoft's first console was both powerful and visionary. The rewritable internal storage and Xbox Live became the blueprint for online services and forever changed the face of home console gaming. Thank you for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button and remember to share it with friends. If you want to see more videos in the series, please subscribe and you can be alerted as soon as they go up. Check out the top 10 games for Xbox video and top 10 Xbox 360 facts video. Follow me on Twitter at VenomQuest. Cheers!